Okay, let's dive into this. You know the theme, right? You made rice, maybe a bit too much, and now you've got leftovers staring back at you. And that little voice starts up, is this actually okay to eat later? Especially with all the stuff you see online, maybe. Things like fried rice syndrome.
Yeah, or reheat syndrome. Those terms float around and they definitely make you pause. And it's interesting because those worries aren't just like random fears. There's real science behind being careful with leftover rice. It involves microbiology.
Exactly. And that's what we're getting into today. We want to really understand the science of handling cooked rice safely. And we've got some great sources to help us figure it out. Practical stuff from Healthy Food Guide, Food Safety Mum, even Martha Stewart for some culinary angles. Plus, we looked at a Reddit thread from Ask Culinary, see what people are actually asking day to day.
hmm Those give you the sort of everyday advice, the tips you might share. But then, to really get the why, we've got two scientific papers from PubMed Central. One's on Bacillus cereus spores in rice after cooking, and the other one details the toxins these bacteria can make. And we've also got public health advice from the Torbay Council to round things out.
Right. So what's the goal here for you listening? We want to cut through any confusion, separate fact from maybe overblown fears, give you clear, solid advice based on what the experts in the science say so you can feel confident about that leftover rice.
So let's start with the main player in this whole story. When we talk about risks with leftover rice, it really boils down to one specific type of bacteria. It's called Bacillus cereus.
Bacillus cereus. Okay. Sounds pretty scientific. So why is this the one we worry about with rice?
Well, it's naturally found in rice, actually.
Yeah.
But the key thing, the reason it's relevant for leftover rice, is that it forms these heat-resistant spores. Think of them like tiny protective shells.
So cooking kills the active bacteria, maybe? But these spores can just hang around, survive the heat.
Exactly. They can survive normal cooking temperatures. And here's the crucial part. If that cooked rice then sits out at room temperature for too long, these spores can germinate. They basically wake up and start multiplying. And as they grow, they produce toxins. Those are what cause food poisoning.
Ah, okay. So it's the toxins they make, not necessarily the bacteria themselves later on.
Precisely. And this is super important. Once those toxins are there, reheating the rice won't get rid of them, even if you heat it really well. That's why how you handle the rice after cooking is so critical.
Got it. So we need to stop those spores from becoming little toxin factories. Which brings us to the danger zone idea, right? What conditions let this happen?
Yeah, the temperature danger zone. Our sources don't give like a specific degree range just for this bacteria in rice, but the principle is absolutely key. Bacteria like Bacillus cereus just multiply much, much faster in a certain range of lukewarm temperatures. Leaving cooked rice on the counter puts it right in that sweet spot for bacterial growth and toxin production.
So step one is keeping it out of that zone as much as possible. What's the main rule there?
Cool it down fast. That's the number one thing. Get the cooked rice cool as quickly as you can after cooking. The sources are really consistent here. Generally, you want it cooled right down within about 1 to 1.5 hours.
Wow, an hour to an hour and a half. That feels quick. Why is that speed so important?
Well, it's all about limiting the time the rice spends in those temperatures where the bacteria thrive. That rapid cooling just dramatically reduces the window of opportunity for those spores to germinate and produce enough toxin to make you sick. Maybe more critical than people realize.
Okay, cool it fast. Now, my first instinct, and probably lots of people's, is just dump the hot pot straight into the fridge, right? But apparently, that's not ideal.
It's a really common thought. But yeah, putting a big steaming pot of rice in the fridge, it might not cool the center down quickly enough. Plus, all that heat can actually raise the temperature inside your whole fridge, potentially affecting other food you have in there.
Right, yeah, you don't want your milk getting warm because of the rice. Okay, so what are better ways to cool it quickly?
You want to increase the surface area and let the heat escape. Stirring the rice regularly as it cools is one good tip, helps release that trapped steam and heat.
Just giving it a mix every few minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And another really effective method, Martha Stewart mentions this too, is spread it out. Take it out of the cooking pot and put it into shallow pans or containers. A thinner layer cools way faster than a big pile. She also suggests covering it loosely in the fridge once it's cooling, so warm air can still escape.
Shallow pans. Stir it. Okay, makes sense. So once it is properly cooled, what's next for safe storage?
Storage is key. Once cool, get it into a tightly sealed food-grade container. That seal does two things. Prevents cross-contamination from anything else in the fridge, and stops the rice from drying out too much.
So no, just leaving it in the saucepan with the lid slightly askew. A proper sealed box. And where does it go? Not the counter, I assume.
Definitely not the counter. Never ever leave cooked rice at room temperature. It has to be refrigerated. Keeping it cold dramatically slows down any potential bacterial growth. The Torbay Council actually suggests keeping your fridge at 8 degrees C or below, ideally even below 5 degrees C.
Good tip on the fridge temp. What if you want to keep it for longer than, say, a day or two? I saw that Reddit comment about freezing. Is that okay?
Freezing is a great option for longer storage, yes. Using zip-top bags, like the Reddit user suggested, works well. Freezing basically stops bacteria in their tracks. Now, the texture might change a bit if it's frozen for ages, but from a safety point of view, it's sound. Our sources don't give a hard deadline for frozen rice safety, but the principle holds.
Okay, cool fast, seal tight, keep cold fridge short term, freezer longer term. Right. Now say it's time to eat it. Reheating. What's critical here?
Reheating properly is the final safety step. The idea is to kill off any bacteria that might have managed to grow a little bit during cooling, even if you did everything right.
Is there a specific temperature we need to hit, like a magic number for safety?
There is. Martha Stewart gives a clear guideline. 165 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 74 Celsius, and it needs to stay at that temp for at least 15 seconds. Using a food thermometer is really the only way to be sure you've hit that target throughout the rice.
Just seeing steam isn't quite enough then. Thermometer it is. And the Torbay Council had some points on reheating, too.
Yes, they also stress heating it thoroughly until it's steaming hot all the way through, aiming for 75 Celsius minimum. And check for cold spots, especially if you're microwaving, as they can heat unevenly. Use a probe if you can. This applies to fried rice too, by the way. If you microwave, follow the instructions for the power and time needed for your portion size.
Good point about microwaves. Now, that rule about only reheating rice once, is that a real thing? Why?
Yes, that's definitely best practice. Don't reheat cooked rice more than once. Every time you cool it and heat it, it passes through that temperature danger zone again. So, multiple reheatings increase the cumulative time spent in that risky zone. Plus, honestly, the quality, taste, texture really goes downhill with repeated reheating.
Makes perfect sense. Only heat what you'll eat and only do it once. Okay, let's pull back a bit and just recap the main preventative steps. What are the absolute must-dos?
All break news today summed it up nicely. Cool rice fast. Refrigerate within 2 hours max. Reheat fully to 165 Fahrenheit or 74 Celsius. Never leave it sitting out at room temp for long. And a good practical tip. Try just cooking the amount you need to avoid leftovers in the first place.
Simple, clear advice. And the Torbay Council had a few extra points worth remembering too.
They did. Things like never using the same container for raw and cooked rice. Avoid that cross-contamination. Cooking fresh is always safest if possible. Be careful not to contaminate rice while cooking. Clean hands. Clean utensils.
Yeah.
Use utensils, not hands, to break up clumps. Don't cook huge batches ahead if you can help it because they take longer to cool. Only reheat rice that was cooled and stored safely. Only take out the portion you need to reheat. And a big one from both them and Martha Stewart. If rice has been left out for more than 2 hours, just throw it away. Don't risk it.
That's all super practical. Now, we talked a lot about the what to do, but let's just quickly touch on the why, again, the science bit. Those PubMed papers gave some insight into the toxins, right?
Yes, they explain the two main types of illness from Bacillus cereus. There's the emetic type that causes nausea and vomiting. That's linked to a toxin called cerulide. Then there's the diarrheal type causes diarrhea, cramps. That's linked to different protein-based toxins like HBl, NEK, and CITK. So it's not just one thing. It can manifest differently depending on the toxin.
So different toxins mean different kinds of unpleasantness. And one paper looks specifically at the spores themselves.
That's right. That study found spores from some Bacillus cereus strains can survive typical rice cooking, like boiling for 15 minutes. And interestingly, they found heat resistance was more common in those emetic, vomiting-causing strains, which just reinforces why that post-cooking handling, the cooling, the storage is so vital, because those Cereiding spores can still cause trouble if allowed to grow.
Okay, wow. So bringing it all home as we wrap up, what are the absolute non-negotiables for handling leftover rice safely?
It really boils down to this. Cool it fast, aim for within that hour, hour and a half time frame, store it right sealed container in the fridge, reheat it thoroughly, 165 Fahrenheit or 74 Celsius, check with the thermometer, and only reheat it once. Follow those steps consistently, and you really minimize the risk and can enjoy that leftover rice without worry.
It is fascinating, isn't it? How these simple kitchen habits connect directly to our health. Dealing with this invisible world of bacteria really makes you appreciate knowing the basics of food safety. And it probably makes you think a bit more about how you handle other leftovers too, not just rice.
Absolutely. Hopefully this conversation has maybe made you a bit more mindful about all leftovers. And perhaps it's even sparked some curiosity, you know? Maybe you'll look into other food safety myths or even dig a bit deeper into the science behind it all. There's always more to learn.
Indeed. Well, here's to safe eating and feeling more informed in our own kitchens. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.